Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Aileen's Arcane Archive. I'm Louise, your pajamaed archivist, one half of the Ailene Lynn Ray writing team. Today, we are going to take a little trip through time. Well, not quite a little trip, it's kind of a big trip. We are going to go on a trip through time with author Shawn Inmon in his Alex Hawke time travel adventure. Now, I will say that his A Door into Time, this is his first book in this series. It's not quite what I expected. It has a little bit of a time machine feel to it, kind of that kind of vibe. He travels so far into the future that technology isn't a thing. Now, I was kind of hoping for something like he would create things with his knowledge of science, but that's not what happens in this, and I'm kind of glad it doesn't, because the story just does pull you along. Let's read a little bit about A Door into Time and see if it might fit your idea of what you would expect from a time travel novel. Not all guys obsess over tiny details, but Army Special Forces do. The wall just didn't look right. Alex has been trying to cope. Life after his deployment has been rough. His ex-wife thought he needed to stop disappointing their daughter. She was right. He would try harder. With 6 hours before his little girl's 4th birthday party, he saw the anomaly. One wall was too short. Plenty of time to tear out a panel and look behind it. He found a brick wall. His house wasn't made of brick. Behind that was another, just like the first. He still had time. When the second wall came down, Alex stood and stared at the shining doorway. Next to it, held up by a knife, was a note. It was a warning, and he didn't listen. So let's take a little trip into the future with Alex and look into Chapter 1 of A Door into Time. So find your comfy place. Get your beverage of choice. Settle back, relax, and let me tell you a story. Chapter 1 of A Door into Time by Shawn Inmon. The door. Alex Hawke looked from one corner of his basement to the other. He closed one eye, a puzzled expression on his face. Something's off, he muttered to himself. Alex had owned the house for more than a year, but until today he had spent little time in the basement. Now that he was here, his subconscious told him something was amiss. He reached for the measuring tape on his workbench. He had stuck the tape in one corner when his cell phone rang. He glanced at the screen. Mandy. Shit. Alex took a deep breath and said, "Hello? Just want to make sure you haven't forgotten. It will crush her if you're not here." Alex glanced at the old clock that hung above the workbench. 10:17. The party is almost 6 hours away. He stopped, realizing that he was always on the defensive when he talked to Mandy. He started over. "I haven't forgotten. I'll be there." He thought of the massive stuffed teddy bear sitting in the living room above his head. "Why do you have to be like this?" That was the opening Mandy had been waiting for. "Right, it's not like you miss things constantly, is it?" "Oh, wait, it is. You missed the first 2 years of her life. Her first word, her first step, everything. Half the time you don't make it here on time on days you to pick her up." The grooves of this argument were well worn and always ended in the same place. Frustration, blame, and anger. "Mandy, I was on deployment. He stopped and gathered himself. There was nothing good that would come from going one more round of that boxing match. He knew he was overmatched, and the judge's decision would inevitably favor her anyway. "Hang on. She wants to talk to you." A moment later, the tiny voice of his daughter came on. "Daddy, you're coming, aren't you?" "Sweetheart." He wanted to say, "You know I'll always be there when you need me," but that wasn't true, and he couldn't lie to her. Instead, he said, "I've got your present right in front of me. I can't wait to give it to you." "Okay, Daddy." There was a shuffling sound on the line, then a moment's silence followed. "That's a dirty trick. Using your daughter to guilt you into showing up? I guess. All is fair, right?" I'll be there, okay?" He glanced at his phone. She had hung up. It was a lot more satisfying when we got to slam the receiver down. Alex shook his head, took a few cleansing breaths, and returned to the problem at hand. He hooked one end of the tape into the masonry at one corner and walked to the other side. The tape showed 27 feet 2 inches. He pursed his lips, calculating. then headed upstairs and out the front door into the April sunshine. Central Oregon weather was unpredictable in the spring, but it was turning out perfectly for Amy's birthday party that afternoon. Warm sunshine, blue skies, and just a few non-threatening clouds. Alex stood with his face up to the warming sun. He had to take advantage of what vitamin D was available in Oregon, then repeated the exercise he had done in the basement. One end of his 50-foot tape hooked on the eastern corner of the house, then he stepped off to the western side, avoiding the rose bushes and rhododendrons. The tape showed 30 feet even. Alex let the tape roll up with a metallic snap. He ran his hands through his short hair, trying to solve the mystery. How is the house 30 feet on the outside and 27 feet on the inside? Because it's not. It can't be, he said to himself as he jumped up the steps of his front porch, then double-timed the stairs to the basement. The eastern wall ended next to a window, so he could see there was nothing but open space beyond it. The western wall was blank, though. Alex had bought the little craftsman house once he had finally accepted that he and Mandy would not work out. He didn't want to be one of those dads who lived in a crummy, rundown apartment with secondhand furniture and who took his kid out for Happy Meals every other weekend. He wanted to have a home that Amy would know was hers just as much as when she stayed with her mother. Thus the craftsman. He had gotten a steal on it because the owner had fallen ill and had been forced to move into assisted living. He'd let the place deteriorate over the previous 10 years, which scared away a lot of potential buyers. Alex was happy to take it as is. It gave him endless projects to fill his hours when he wasn't at work. All of which led him to the basement on a sunny day in April and the mystery of the missing 2 feet 10 inches. The entire western wall was covered in paneling that looked like it had been there for decades. Alex peered at the paneling, looking for nail holes. There were none. Glued on, eh? Well, game on, then. He paused. Is it a bad sign that I'm talking to myself more and more every day? Another pause. Not until you start answering yourself. He glanced around, but of course there was no one to laugh at his joke. One more downside to living completely alone. Maybe I should get a roommate. Or a dog. Alex grabbed his claw hammer off the bench and tried to catch the edge of the paneling and pull it down. No luck. The large pry bar gave the same result. After a few minutes of frustration, he scrabbled through his toolkit and found his small pry bar. He jammed it into the line between the ceiling and the paneling. He tapped on the end of the pry bar with his hammer until he felt it sink in a bit, then pulled. Finally, a piece of the paneling gave way. Alex stared at the spot where the paneling had been, but couldn't see anything other than darkness. He glanced around for a flashlight, found none, then remembered the flashlight he carried with him everywhere. He thumbed his phone on, opening the flashlight app, and pointed it at the corner. Behind the paneling was red brick. Alex slipped the phone back into his pocket and scratched his head. Why would someone put up a false brick wall in a basement, then glue paneling over it? That doesn't make sense. He was intrigued. Shrugging his shoulders, he said, Only one way to find out. With a piece of the paneling gone, it was easier to weasel the pry bar or the claw of his hammer behind it. It wasn't elegant, but after 20 minutes of steady work, he had pulled down a 6-foot section of paneling, piece by piece. There was nothing behind the paneling but a well-made brick wall. Since his discharge, Alex had worked in construction, mostly doing drywall for a contractor putting up a new apartment building one town over. A simple brick wall wasn't going to stop him. He grabbed his heaviest tarp off a shelf and spread it along the edge of the wall. Next, he grabbed his hammer drill and power saw. Let's do it. He set to work cutting along the seams of the brick, then put a wedge tip on the drill and set it to vibrate. When he pulled down the first section onto the tarp, he was flabbergasted to see what was behind the brick wall. It was another brick wall. Alex laughed at the ridiculousness of it all. I guess if you're going to build a brick wall in your basement for no apparent reason, why not build 2 brick walls? He glanced at the clock again. There was still plenty of time to take down both walls and have time to get cleaned up before he had to leave for the birthday party. He went to work, taking an entire 6-foot section of the first brick wall down before focusing on the second. Soon piles of bricks were stacked, thigh-high on the tarp around him. When he cut away the first section of the second wall, a blast of cool air hit him. He turned his head away, expecting a musty, pent-up smell, thinking that the air had been trapped for many years. The wind was inescapable, though, and washed over and around him. It didn't smell stale or musty at all. Instead, it was an unmistakably familiar smell. The ocean. 150 miles inland, Alex Hawk could smell the ocean. The breeze continued to blow, though, and it was no doubt about it, the smell of marine air, cold, crisp, and the unmistakable scent of salt on the air. Alex went to work taking down the rest of the wall, patiently one section of bricks at a time. Soon enough he could see what was beyond the wall. At least, he should have been able to see what was beyond the wall. Instead, there was just an inky darkness that seemed to swallow whatever feeble light reached it. Alex reached his hand into the opening. There was at least a foot of empty space between the second brick wall and the outer wall of the house. Alex's light shone on the far wall of his house, right where it should have been. Everything looked like it should, with one exception. In the corner was a deeper blackness, delineated by a slight shimmering outline. He shone his phone's flashlight against that corner. There was the shimmering outline of a door, if doors were made of darkness of the deepest sky. Next to the outline of the door was an envelope, pinned to the exterior wall by a hunting knife. Chapter 1 of A Door into Time by Shawn Inmon. If you liked what you heard, we will have all the information on how you can get a copy of your own should you choose to do so. I am very interested in seeing how the rest of this series plays out, so I will be getting more in this series. But in the meantime, if you like time travel books, this might be the book for you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope the rest of your day goes very well. And as always, I hope you remember that your life is a story, so go out and live it.